Hello everyone, this is Mike Sangvi from vlemon.com and I am back with another SQL Server 2014 tutorial video. And in this video we are going to learn about create table. In our previous video we learned about create table syntax. So this is the create table syntax and I know you are not able to understand anything from this video. Okay, and if you want to know how to create a database table, I created this video. In this video we are going to create a very simple table. Okay, no complex tables, no complex definitions, no index X, simple create table with the columns, with some columns and data types. So let's open SQL Server Management Studio, and here is our SQL Server Management Studio. And if you are forget about this syntax, concentrate on this syntax. So this is the syntax of creating, or the syntax to create a database table. Create table, your fully qualified table name. So in this scenario we have database name, schema name and table name. Okay, these all the dummy names, and then you have to open the brackets, and then you have to list down all the columns. So this in this table we have n columns. So column 1, column 2 and so on up to column n, and after column name you have to provide data type for that column, and you have to separate all this with a comma. Okay, so let's start by creating, or let's start by creating our first database table. I want to create a customer table inside my vlemon database. Vlemon database, I created a vlemon, or it is a blank database I created just for this tutorial. Okay, now what if I have to create a customer table inside our vlemon database? For this you have to use the syntax, and this is the syntax for creating a table underscore customer table inside our vlemon database. Okay, so this is the syntax for creating our first database table tbl underscore customer inside vlemon database. Create space table space your fully qualified table name, and this is vlemon dot my schema is I'm going to use default schema dbo dot my table name. Table name is tbl underscore customer. Before creating a new table, or for the naming purpose, you have to always start your name with a letter. So I'm not able to create a table name with 1 underscore something. Okay, or this is my first table, so I'm not able to create a table name in which table name is start with an integer. You have to always, or for the name of table you have to always ensure your table name is start with a letter. Okay, you are not able to create a table with table name start with a integer or special symbols. Okay, so this is my vlemon. I want to use default schema, and this is my first table tbl underscore customer. This is not going to be allowed by your SQL Server database. Okay, so let me quickly copy this. I want to paste this here, and whenever I'm going to create this, it is not going to be allowed. You are able to see this error message, incorrect syntax near dot. Okay, I'm not able to create a database table with table name start with an integer. Even I'm not able to use a special symbol in my table name starting with table name. Okay, delete this and execute this command to create your first database table. Execute it, and your first database table is created. And right now our database table contains nothing. So let me execute a select query on our tbl underscore table. So right now our table is created with 3 columns. The first is ID, first name and last name, but right now my table not contain anything. Okay, the next thing I want to explain the data type. So this is my create table statement. This is my first column ID, and its data type is begin. So in case of big int, or this is a numeric column, it is going to be store numeric values 4, 5, 6 and so on. The varchar is your string column. You can store string. So varchar, and you are able to see this 100. It means the length of the string is not more than 100 characters. So I am able to use Mayank Sangvi. It is going to be stored Mayank Sangvi. And if I am going to just reduce its size, so let's say my data type is varchar, let's say varchar 1, then my database table only contains single character. So remove this, and it's time to insert record in our database table, and the syntax for inserting is here. You have to simple type for inserting a record inside your database table. You have to type insert, and then you have to insert into, then fully qualified table name, the columns in which you want to insert something. So I want to insert my values in all the 3 columns, so you have to provide column name, first name, last name, bracket close, and then you have to define, or you have to provide the values for this column. For integer values or numeric values, you have to provide values in without single quotes, and for string values, or if you want to provide a string, then you have to enclose those string with single quotes. So let's say this is my first name and this is my last name. We use the same syntax in our below query to insert our first record. So this is going to be insert our first record inside our vlemon.db_customer table. And the ID for the first customer is 1, the first name of customer is Mayank, and the last name of the customer is Sangvi. So let's execute this query, and our first row is inserted in database table. One row is affected. Let's execute select statement to see the result. And our database table now contain a single record, single row for customer name Mayank, and the last name for the customer is Sangvi. And the ID for the customer is 1. Okay. Congratulations, you successfully created your first database table, and you also inserted a record inside your database table. The next thing I want to show you is, okay, now right now if you are able to notice, my selected database is master. Okay, so if I'm not going to provide a fully qualified name inside my create statement, then this table is going to be created inside my master database. Okay, so this is going to be created in your master database, but this is not a good practice for creating or writing a query. Inside your query, you have to always provide a fully qualified name to avoid such type of mistakes. What if you want to skip the database name? I am not going to prefer to skip a database name. Always write a fully qualified name for your database object. Okay, so I am going to show you what if you want to select vlemon database. For this, you have to use command. You have to use command. Use your database name. So this is the syntax. Use, and then you have to provide your database name. Okay, so this is the command which I am going to execute to select my vlemon database. So execute this, and our vlemon database is selected. So you are able to notice vlemon database here and vlemon database. Okay, now if you want to create a product table inside vlemon database, then if your vlemon database is selected, then you can use this command, create table and your table name. You can skip database name and schema name if you want to create the table inside your vlemon database with default schema. Okay, so this command is going to be create a product table inside your selected database. Right now my vlemon database is selected. Okay, so this command is going to be create a database table inside your selected database with default schema. Okay, so let me execute this command, and your database table is created successfully, and I want to perform a select statement for the same. Okay, and as a best practice, you have to always use this syntax to create your database table. Okay, now if you want to insert a record in product table, then you can use this. Insert into your table name, and then the list of the column in which you want to provide some values, and then values keyword, and inside the bracket you have to provide required values. Now what if my some other database is selected? So let me quickly use test, I think test1. Okay, for example my test1 is selected, and by mistake I executed this query. Okay, so your table underscore product is created inside test1, and I want to create this inside vlemon. So this is wrong. That's why you have to always use fully qualified name at the time of writing a SQL Server query. The next thing I want to show you is the schema. Right now we are using default schema for this table. What if I want to create a database table in some other schema? For this you have to ensure that your schema is available in the database. Okay, so let me quickly change my database to use vlemon, or yes, I want to use this. Execute, and so we are now in a vlemon database. And if you want to create a table with HR, then you can, this is the syntax in which we are creating a table underscore employee inside HR schema. Okay, and it's time to execute this command. Our create statement is failed with message 2760 level 16 state1 line 68. The specified schema name HR either does not exist or you do not have permission to use it. Okay, so for this video we have created a blank database. It means we have the rights to use the HR schema, but it does not exist. So this is the syntax to create a schema. Create schema and schema name. Okay, so this is the syntax for creating a schema, and this is my schema underscore name. Okay, now I'm going to create a schema HR inside my vlemon database table. Can I use a database name inside this? No. For this you have to first use your database name, and then you have to create a schema. Okay, you are not able to use fully qualified name in case of schemas or at the time of create a schema. So this is my database name vlemon, and I want to create a HR. I want to create a sales schema, let's say, and go. No, I'm not able to use fully qualified name inside create schema statement. Okay, if you are going to execute this, it is going to be fail. Incorrect syntax dot. And if you are going to remove this, then you are able to create a schema. So as a best practice, whenever you are trying to create a schema, then you have to use this 4-line code to create a schema. The first is going to be select your database, and then it is going to be create a schema in the selected database. your schema, sales schema, is created successfully. Okay, finally we are ready to create our database table inside our newly created HR schema. So this is the syntax: create table. The syntax is similar with the previous one we use at the time of creating our table underscore customer. Okay, so let me execute this, and before executing I want to show you something new. In this query I used identity. Now what is identity? Okay, so what is the identity? In my table underscore customer I use ID column, first name and last name, but if you are able to notice, I have to always provide a ID, a unique ID for my customer. Okay, and if I don't know how many records available in my database table, then I'm not sure which ID I'm going to assign for my new customer. So let's say I have 10,000 records in my database table. Okay, I don't aware how many records available. It's so many records are available in my database table, but I don't know how to assign a unique ID for my new columns. For this we are going to use identity columns. Now what is identity columns? Identity columns is going to be auto generated or auto populated at the time of inserting a new rows. So this is the syntax, and if you are able to notice, this is create table. Syntax is your fully qualified name of table, so database dot schema dot table underscore name, database name, schema name and table name. And we know about this syntax, column 1 and data type. Okay, we know about this syntax, but in this we used a identity. Okay, and what is the main purpose of identity? Whenever you are going to insert a new record, identity column is going to be auto generated. And how it is going to be generate a new ID? This is the answer. So inside identity we have to provide two values. The first one is the seed value and the next one is incremental value. Seed value is the starting value. The seed value is the first value which we want to assign for first inserted row, and the increment value is used to increment the ID whenever I want to insert a new record. Okay, so let me quickly create this database table. This is a table underscore employee, and let me quickly, okay, I think our HR schema is not created, so let me quickly create this. Yes, HR schema is already there. Okay, so something is wrong here, so let me quickly remove this. Cleanup, I am going to perform some cleanup. Okay, it looks good now. Now we are going to create our table underscore employee inside our HR schema. Execute this command and our table is created successfully. And now you have to insert a new record. You want to insert a new employee. So this is the syntax for inserting a new record in your table underscore employee table. Insert into your fully qualified table name, your columns which you want to provide values, and then values of your columns. Okay, if you are able to notice, inside this insert statement I didn't include ID. Why? Because I don't want to bother about ID column. It is going to be auto generated. So let's execute this query and see the output. This is our insert statement, and let's see the output. And this is your ID column, this is your first name, last name, and this is your department. Okay, so this is our first employee with first name Mayank Sanghvi and last name is, the first name is Mayank and the last name is Sanghvi, and this employee belongs to IT department, and the employee ID for this employee is 1. Great. and inside our insert statement we never provide any value for ID. Okay, so whenever I'm going to insert a new employee in my table underscore employee table, it is going to be create a new ID for my newly created or newly inserted employees. It is always going to be +1 with the previous value, assuming there is no failure at the time of insertion. Okay, so let me quickly execute this. My one row is inserted in my table underscore employee, and it's time to execute the select statement once again. And for my second employee, the ID is generated to the +1 value with the previous value. Okay, now can I use other value inside this? Yes, you can use it. This is our next example in which we are creating a contact table for our employees or for our customer. Okay, and for this this is the syntax: create table vlemon.schema name dot table name. This is your first column ID. The data type of the column ID is big int, and this is the identity column. The seed value for this is 1000 and the increment value is 100. It means the first ID or first record ID is 1000 and the next record ID is 1000 plus 100. Okay, so let me quickly execute this. First I want to create this database table. Our database table is created successfully, and now it's time to insert a new record inside our table underscore contact. Execute this, and our first row is inserted in our table underscore contact. Let's see the output. So the ID for first contact is 1000. Okay, great. And it's time to insert another record in our table underscore contact. One row is affected. That's great. And it's time to see the output. And now the ID generated ID for our identity column is 1100. Let me go back on create table or table definition, and this is the definition for identity column. Identity 1000 and 100. It means the 1000 is the seed value, the first value, and the increment value for each record is 100. The first value, the first row contains 1000, the next value contains 1000 plus 100, the third record contains 1000 plus or 1100 plus 100. Okay, assuming no failure. The next thing I want to explain you is the null or not null value. Okay, now this is my another table. The create table, we are creating a table for user. Okay, so this is going to be store your user related information such as username, password and email ID. This is normally you are storing registration form information inside this table. What if my user is not going to provide a username, password and email? These are mandatory fields. I don't want nothing in this field, so I'm going to use not null to ensure that these three columns always contain some values. Okay, so this is the syntax in which we are forcing our database that you have to always get some values for this three column. Okay, if user is not going to be provide anything for this three column, then the insert statement is going to be fail. Okay, so let's create this table first. So I want to create this database table. Our table is created successfully. Okay, now we are going to provide a value. We are going to insert some records in our table underscore user, and this is the insert statement. I want to insert some record in my table underscore user table. I want to insert username, password, email ID, first name and last name. Inside username I am inserting a null value, and for password the password is 1212 and the registered email ID is this. For first name, last name, at the time of registration user didn't provide the first name and last name information. So let's execute this command, and this command is going to be fail. Cannot insert the value null into username table vlemon dbu table underscore user column does not allow nulls. So this is going to be force your user that you have to provide a proper username for your username column. Okay, so this is the second step. This is the second query in which we are providing a username, and this is going to be working fine. Okay, one row is affected, and it's time to see the output of our database table. Execute select statement and execute. And if you are able to notice, now my ID column is 2. Oh, can I use 2 in here? No. So for the first row my ID is 2. Why? This is wrong. You told me that the seed, the first, this is going to be used by your first row. Okay, I also included that if your insert statement is not going to be fail. Right now my database table contains ID with 2. Okay, assuming no deleted or no delete and no update operation. Assuming right now my database table contains ID with 2. For the next row the ID is going to be generated as 3. But what if my insert execute statement is going to be fail for 3? It is going to be skipped. So let's say I am going to rerun this insert statement. We know this is going to be fail. Now this statement or this insert statement is going to be fail for ID 3. It means our identity or 3 is going to be skipped. If anything is failed for particular identity, that identity number is going to be skipped, and the next row is going to be inserted with skipped ID plus 1. Okay, so this insert statement is going to be failed for 3. So our 3 is failed, and again if I am going to add this, now this time my row is affected, our row is created successfully, and this time my ID is 4. And let's say our again insert statement is going to be failed for 5. Again it is going to be, now the ID is 6. Now my insert statement is failed for 6. Now my ID is 7. Again my statement is failed for 7. Now my ID is 8. For newly inserted record the ID is 8. Okay, so let me quickly go here and execute this once more, and again I want to execute the select statement, and I am able to see 8 here. So I hope now you are able to see the concept of identity. The next thing I want to show you, it is not mandatory you have to include all the columns inside your insert statement. Okay, and at the time of registration my user is not going to provide first name and last name, so why I'm going to use this inside my query? I'm going to use this type of query. Okay, insert into my database table name the required columns in which you want to insert some values, and then you have to provide the values for those columns. This is the syntax in which I am using only username, password and email ID, and the values for username, password and email ID. So this is going to be work fine. Okay, so let me quickly execute this, and my one row is affected and my one row is available in my database table. Oh, great. Now the next thing I want to show you this in this insert statement we are using username, password, and I skipped email ID column, first name and the last name. Okay, so whether this insert statement is going to be executed successfully or it is going to be fail. It is going to be fail because we are not using email ID, and email ID is one of the mandatory column. We are not able to provide any null value inside email ID, and if you are not going to provide anything for a particular column, by default database is going to be inserted null value. Okay, so this is going to be fail. Oh, you cannot insert the value null into the column email ID table vlemon dbu.tbl user column does not allow null values, so your insert statement is fail. If you want that your insert statement is going to be executed successfully, then you have to always use this 3 mandatory column inside your insert statement. Okay, so I hope now you're able to understand how to create a database table and how to use identity column. Now we have something very wrong inside our database table, and if you are able to see that, okay, this is my username and it is not possible that multiple users have same username. How to avoid this? We are going to learn about this in our future videos. We are going to learn about primary keys, we are going to learn about unique keys, we are going so in our next video we are going to learn about keys, we are going to learn about some default values. Okay, right now in this I am not using email ID, but what if I want to insert some default value in case of it is not provided? So we are going to cover this in next video. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, don't forget to click on subscribe, like button, share it to your friends, provide your feedbacks, and see you all in next SQL Server 2014 tutorial video.